Hello guys, welcome to the Passion series, and this is part 2 of chapter number 8. So if you remember, last time we had discussed some of the beautiful concepts of the visual acuity. Today we are going to deal with the visual acuity measurement in some of the special cases. So first we are taking the cataract. Obviously it is the most important one. So in patients with the dense cataract, with the total opaque cataractous lens, not possible to test the visual acuity. Now this is a common problem and you must have faced this if you have attended the postings in the ophthalmology, if you are intern or a third year, anything. Even if you are a first year resident, because I think the first work that intern has to, or a first year resident in ophthalmology has to do and master, is the taking of visual acuity. Now the laser, if I talk about the laser interferometer, it forms a diffraction pattern of the parallel lines on the retina. Even through a moderate cataract, the patient is asked to identify. So what we are doing there, we are asking the patient to measure the orientation of progressively finer lines to establish the visual acuity, okay. And along with this, like one is your laser interferometer, we can also use the different instrument, potential acuity meter, that can also be used. It projects a tiny Snellen's chart onto the retina around the lens opacity and it can be used. So we'll not go into the details of it because you know that is beyond the scope of UG level, but yes, I think you should know the names of the two instruments, that if you want to measure the visual acuity in the cataractous patient, you have something called as the laser interferometer, and then we also have the potential acuity meter, that is important. Now the next challenge is taking the visual acuity in the young children. So the ordinary test types cannot be used in the young children because they are easily distracted, they do not know the alphabets, right? So maturation of the infant visual function has been studied by two techniques. The first is the pattern visual evoked potential. Visual evoked potential, like if you remember, we have got two types. One is your flash VEP and another is a patterned VEP. So the pattern VEP we can use, this is your number 1, okay, and the second is your preferential looking behavior. Preferential looking behavior, that that is used in the optokinetic nystagmus drum test also in children younger than 2 years. Now those children who are even less than 2 years, the VEP test proves more successful. In children older than 2 years can manage with both the tests. So who are younger than 2, it becomes difficult, the preferential looking, because younger than 2 are not holding any preference, okay, most of the time. So you have to have a great deal of observation, but more than 2 can be managed with both. The results from VEP conform more nearly to the findings. Now which one is more accurate? This was about the convenience, that if you are more than 2 years you can do more, but both, but if you are less than 2 years your VEP test was better. But if I talk about the accuracy also, the VEP is conforming more nearly to the findings of Snellen's and e-acuity than do the forced choice preferential looking test. So I think in both the ways this your VEP is better. Now talking about the other test. What are the other test type? So you should know the names. We have got the Keeler, Elliott and K picture test. We have got the Cardiff acuity cards. We have got the Fuchs symbols. We also have the preferential looking test. Now let's talk about this preferential looking test. Given a choice, an infant prefers to look at a pattern. Now if you are giving a choice to an infant, one is a plane, okay, and one is some pattern. So usually the infant will prefer towards looking at that pattern, okay, rather than the unpatterned stimuli. So this infant's preference may be quantified by incorporating the pattern. So you have to actually quantify that how much he is preferring towards that pattern stimulus, okay, right. So these are the different kind of the charts. These are your Cardiff. So you should be very, very thorough, okay, identify. You should be able to recognize them as soon as you see them, because again I am telling you that all those images which are given in the Parsons, I have covered all of these images in my app also, okay. So the Cardiff acuity cards, all these images are pretty important for your exams. They are sometimes directly lifted. So these are your Cardiff acuity cards, okay. This one A is your Cardiff acuity cards, while these patterned stripes, these are your Teller acuity charts. Look at the ages also, somewhat they are different, like 2 to 4 years is your Cardiff and Teller acuity is 1 to 3. Can you see? In the Cardiff, we are using the images, simple pictures, while in the Teller-Equity, we are using this black and white stripes we are using of the different widths. Okay. Now, let's talk about the Teller-Equity test. Teller-Equity test, the Teller's method of estimation is used in very young pre-verbal children, that is 1 to 3 years of age, very, very important. And this consists of how many cards? 17 cards they are using, okay. One half is a set of vertical black and white of varying width and spatial frequency, other is uniform gray background. So if you see here, we are using two kind of charts. One is this is your gray background. Another, they are using the different widths of black and white strips. So they are using something like this. They are presented in the center of a large gray stage after first drawing the attention towards the stage with a toy. So obviously you have to use a lot of gimmicks, like a child, that too of the pre-verbal age, will not do everything that you want him to do. So you have to make him do all those things. So you have to first of all, take the attention of the child with the help of a toy or something, and on the other side of the screen you are sitting, and you have to observe very, very carefully that whether the patient is patient means a child is actually having a preference towards that gray board or towards that stripes. Okay, so see, there is a small hole in the center of each card through which the examiner will judge the preferred side of the card by noting the infant's fixation. So that we have to do. If the infant is fixating on the side of the card with the grating, a smaller grating size is shown till no preference is observed. The grating size can be converted into the equivalent of Snellen's visual acuity chart. So first you have to see that whether the child is actually preferring the gray board or the stripes board. If he is preferring the stripe board, then keep on giving the finer and finer till you find that there is no preference, because maybe now the patient is not I should not say patient, the infant is not able to see the fine lines, so he is having no preference between the gray board and these lines one. Okay, and then you have to convert this into the Snellen's equivalent. So if you are having the toddlers or you are having slightly older verbal children, then we can use that simple picture chart constructed on the Snellen's principles only. We can use simple pictures, pets, simple shapes, fruits, or some simple animals that the child knows. A very effective test is your E-chart, E-test. Then another important thing is your E-test. Then we have got the C-test. This is for especially for the illiterate people, in which the examiner holds the cards on which letter E is printed in various position. If the test is treated as a game, so what is done? The child is standing at a distance of 6 meters. And you are holding that. Okay, so this child will readily respond on request by indicating the direction of the letter with his hand or by holding a similar card in the same position. Some similar test we also have the Landau's C chart. So in this, what is happening? You are showing the card. Sometimes E is opening in this direction. Then you have to ask whether it is up or whether it is down, whether it is right, whether it is left, something like this, or it could be something like this also. Okay, and you have to be very clear that patient does not give you the answers in here and there, yahan and wahan, because that becomes very cumbersome for you to understand whether the patient is telling you the right one or not. So you have to be very precise, tell the patient and give the proper instructions. You have to tell up, down, right or left. That has to be very, very clear. Then the system of character matching. System of character matching is there, that is exploited by the Sheridan-Gardiner-Steiger test, which is a full form. It is a sight testing for young children in retards. We also have the HOTV test. If you do not have the visual acuity which can be measured by the other ones, then we can use these ones. These are your Sheridan-Gardiner-Steiger test, HOTV test, which children match the Snellen's letters on a handheld card. Now, what you are doing, you have to ask the patient to see at that, and he has to take out the similar card. Suppose he is saying E, so he has to take out the similar E card in his handheld cards also. So that way you will come to know that he is able to see this letter. An objective measure of the visual acuity, we can also use the optokinetic nystagmus. If we are taking a white drum here, So for that, a white drum is actually shown to the patient, in which we have got the stripes. Okay, we have got the alternating pattern of the stripes, and you are rotating it in front of the patient like this. So we have got the vertical lines here, and they are rotated before the eyes. The patient follows a stripe, and okay, if the patient has to follow. So usually if the child is very small, the mother will take the child in the lap and she'll sit there and switches suddenly to back to pick up a new stripe. So what is happening? You have to see for the development of a nystagmus in the eyes of the patient. If he is able to follow this, there will be a nystagmus there. By varying the breadth of the stripes or the distance of the patient from the drum, an assessment of the visual acuity can be made. This is especially for the children or the uncooperative and malingering patients also, because in cases of malingering and when we talked about the malingering and the hysteria due to some financial gain and something, patients are doing malingering. So that time we can use this. This is a good thing, because malingering people do not have a hold over this development of nystagmus. It is worth noting that in cases of hemianopias, due to the lesions of parietal lobe, the response is absent. So important thing is that this response, nystagmus, will be absent in a people who are having the parietal lobe lesion. So I hope this is very, very clear how to measure the visual acuity in the special cases. Okay, now coming to yet another important thing, and that is your photo stress test. Photo stress test is important. It is one of the macular function tests that we are basically using to differentiate between the macular and the optic nerve lesions. Between the macula and the optic nerve lesions, we are using exposure to a bright light. We are exposing, actually what is the concept is that we are exposing the macula to a bright light. So there we are bleaching the pigments. We are doing it for some time, for 10 seconds, and then we have to see how much time it is taking for the resynthesis of the pigments and reversal of the visual acuity. So normally it should be within 50 seconds. So if it is taking more, then we come to know that it's a macular lesion. That is the point behind it. Now what they are saying, that exposure to a bright light prior to recording the visual acuity may result in a fallaciously low reading in the retinal disorders. The extent of involvement can be assessed clinically by recording the vision before and then after, also by giving a stress of the light. That is why it is called as a photo stress test. The photo stress test is performed by covering one eye and asking the patient to read the smallest possible line on the near chart. So cover the one eye and ask the patient to read. If he has some near glasses, ask the patient to hold that specs in the lap only, because he has to use this spectacles again. So read the smallest possible line in the near vision chart. A bright light is then shown into the eye. So you have to do the stress by the photo. So bright light is shown into the eye. This is for 15 seconds, and then ask the patient to read that line again and note the recovery time. So, and then you have to do this test in the other eye also. Okay. Now in the normal people and those with optic nerve diseases, no significant difference will be there, and they will be recovering soon from this photo stress. But in a patient who is having the macular disease, this is prolonged, and this is how we are differentiating between the macular pathology and the optic nerve pathology. A very, very important thing. If the difference is at least 1/3 longer than the recovery time of a normal eye, it is considered to be significant. Okay. Now when the photoreceptors are diseased, there is a marked delay in the visual pigment regeneration process, and that is why the recovery is delayed. The test is useful in the early macular diseases, like we have got the central serous retinopathy, where there may be minimal deterioration in the visual acuity and yet an easily detectable decrease in photoreceptors. So I think this is an important test which will help in the early detection of the macular diseases when you are having a problem related to the central areas of the retina, and you have to distinguish whether it's an optic nerve disease or it's a macular disease, whether it's a pre-retinal disease or a post-retinal disease. One of the important tests, that too without much of the instrumentation and interventions we can do, is the photo stress test. So in this session we cover two important things. One is the visual acuity in the special cases, and second is the photo stress test. I hope you like the video. Please do like the video, share the video, and please don't leave the video without giving your feedback, and tell me how you are liking the videos, because every of your feedback means a lot for me and motivates me to make even more such videos. Thank you and happy ophthalmology.